Good job, guys.
Good morning, everybody. Everybody say good morning.
Register, record their claim, and then start setting up their equipment. Right behind me, what a typical gold mine looked like here in Fairbanks during the peak of the gold rush. Once the miners had all their equipment in place, they would pick what they hoped was going to be a lucky spot on their claim, and they would dig an 8 by 8 foot shaft straight down through the frozen overburden, through the frozen gravel, all the way to bedrock, up to 300 feet on some of the deepest claims here. And if they were lucky and they hit that pay streak of gold with the bottom of that shaft, they would then start to excavate a side tunnel off of that shaft, following that pay streak of gold. That was called a drift. So for that reason, these were drift mines, and the men that worked them were simply drifters, because they're drifting off the shaft following gold. Once the shaft was open to bedrock, the drifters would send steam lines down from the boiler on the surface, and those lines were attached to steam points like this one right here. Men working underground would hammer these points into the frozen face of the drift, use the steam that came out the end to thaw out the gold-bearing gravel. Once it was thawed, they would excavate with picks and shovels and fill up wheelbarrows, 275 pounds per load. Those men moved that thawed gold-bearing gravel from the face of the drift across bedrock back to the bottom of the shaft. They would fill the bucket up that was waiting for them there. When that bucket was full, they would signal their engineer up on the surface. The engineer would engage his winch, lift that full bucket up and out of the shaft. It would travel up the line like you see it doing here, and that bucket would drop its contents into a pile of material like this right behind me. That is called pay dirt. Pay dirt is gold mixed in with sand and gravel. Let's watch this bucket drop here. All right, what the drifters were looking for in the pay dirt was placer gold, P-L-A-C-E-R. Real simply, placer gold is gold that can be separated from the sand and the gravel in the pay dirt simply with using water and a sluice box with riffles. And I will talk much more about riffles when we get down to the so that heavy gold can separate from the sand and the gravel. And what's going to happen to the gold? It's going to sink to the bottom. So you really got to shake this up. You can't just swish the water back and forth. You have to hear that rock grinding on the metal of the pan. Now as you shake side to side, you want to start to tip the pan away from you and move all that gravel from the bottom of your pan right up to the edge. And now we're going to stop shaking here and show you this angle. The entire time you are actively panning, you need to keep your pan at an angle. You never pan flat. When we first started and we shook the pan flat, that sank the gold to the bottom. And as we moved everything forward, that gold slid along the bottom of the pan. It is now caught in that little crease right there. That's going to hold on to the gold. So you never pan flat. When you're actively panning, you should be able to put your hand on the bottom of your pan. You're touching metal. There is no sand or rock on the bottom of your pan. At that angle, you're going to take on water, and again, like the trommel screen, shake to set that heavy gold into the crease, and you're also going to be lifting light material up to the surface. So the next thing you do is stop shaking, pour the water off, you hold that angle in your pan without changing the angle, you dip underwater and you lift right back up. and you will see the top layer of light material that you shook to the surface wash right out of the pan. You dip and you lift without changing the angle of your pan. So you get some material moving, and then you take on water, holding that angle. Again, like the trommel screen, shake side to side to set the heavy gold into the crease and lift light material to the surface. Then you stop shaking and pour, hold the angle, and dip and lift. The water does all the work for you. All you do is move the pan in and out of the water. And every time you lift your pan out of the water, you should see some material leave. If nothing leaves, you got to increase your angle. So you dip and lift. And now, depending on what you have in your poke when you start, you might have big rocks start to build up that don't move. If you got big rocks that aren't moving, you can pick them off the surface and just get them out. They get in the way later on. Okay, so I have water. I'm holding my angle. Shake side to side. Set the heavy gold in the crease. Lift light material to the surface. Stop shaking and pour. And dip and lift. Let the water do the work. Every time you lift the pan out, you see a little bit leave. And you continue these steps until you get down to just about a spoonful of material. I'm almost there. I got one more big rock. I'm going to take on water one more time. Just make sure the gold is set in the crease. Stop and pour. And dip and lift. And when you get down to just about a spoonful, you'll see mostly sand and a few small rocks in your pan. And now you are done actively panning. So now you can take on water and you can flatten your pan out because you're done actively panning. You can flatten this out and then use that water in your pan to real gently just rinse over that sand and push it to the side. And as that sand starts to move, you will see what the old timers called a flash in the pan. And that's going to be your gold. You can just push that sand away real gently and get your gold nice and clean. Now, if you get to the very bottom here and there's no gold in your pan, doesn't happen often, but if it does, let us know. We'll get you another poke and we'll help you get started again. But if you get to the very bottom, you did all of that work, and there's no gold in your pan, you can say to yourself, probably for the first time in your life, literally, now listen, it just didn't pan out.
There's one Dad Claxton me his name for river stand.